Wisdom Gaming. Once again, unscripted, unapologetic, uncensored, and psychologically immune to social media manipulation. So, what are we doing today? It's ASL. I'm going to start by covering the first part of the game I'm playing with Doug Leslie. It's actually the scenario J200. I should have had that up actually. Where is it? It's in here. Okay, one story town. Let's talk about this scenario. Here, you see I've blocked out a couple of things here so people can't. If that's what you're doing, going around on watching YouTube videos to see if you can get free scenarios, all right, if that's really your game, you're not going to accomplish that here. So, just a bit of a copyright protection, I suppose. If you want this scenario, you're going to have to get it from someplace else. Okay. Now, let's talk about this. So, it's an interesting scenario. Scenario design, Chris Olden. You can see up in the corner here. Now, Chris has done a good job with the actual game design. And I want to say that this is really an exciting scenario to play. I've enjoyed it. We've played about 3 turns, 2.5 turns now. And I'm going to cover at least the first turn in this video. So, in this scenario, you've got a pretty large force of Russians defending a more or less city-type board, and 2 sets of Finnish troops attacking from 2 flanks like this. And I'm going to show you that, and I think that from that standpoint, this is a reasonably historical scenario. Now, like any ASL scenario, there's a lot of arbitrary aspects to the design. Okay, for whatever reason. Okay, who knows how the scenario designer decided that this force should have 16 447s and 2 527s? Why doesn't it have 2 268s and 16 426s? The criteria for coming up with these scenarios is somewhat arbitrary in the ASL, and I think that's always been recognized. But one of the things that scenario designers are starting to do more and more, which I'm not so sure I like. Let me erase this marking I put on here for now, because I don't want that on there forever. Okay, I should really use the annotations from this particular program rather than the PDF program. So, so you're going to see that the criteria here for victory is to get 4 victory points, which is basically there's 1 building worth 2 victory points and 4 others worth 1. Total of 6. The Finnish have to get 4 of those. That's pretty reasonable. More or less control of the town and the important buildings. But this is the kind of gimmicky stuff that ASL designers are starting to do lately. Now here, for example, you see these? These are BA6s. Now if you look up BA6s, these are radioless vehicles. They've always been radioless. This is a 1941 scenario, so they're definitely going to be radioless. Yet, for whatever reason, the scenario designer said, nah, let's give them radios. Which means they can operate independently without having to take task checks. It's completely ahistorical for this to be allowed. So it's silly to create a historical scenario with BA6s if they're not going to act like BA6s. Okay? Minor point. I understand what the designer is trying to do here. He's trying to balance the scenario by letting the Russians have some maneuverable vehicles. Still, it grates a little bit on the nerves. Something else here, for whatever reason, don't know where he gets against this information. I blocked out the SSRs, but we've got commissar replacement is not allowed. Uh, that may not be too bad of a rule. I think it doesn't even have to stipulate that because the onboard commissars are per the rules, and these are reinforcing commissars. You can't replace this 9-2 with a commissar. So I guess you might have been able to replace this 8-1 with another 10-0 commissars, because I don't think you're allowed to have more commissars than regular leaders on the map. Okay, fine, no problem there. Now the Finns have Molotov cocktail capability here, and they're all considered assault engineers for purposes only for having an underscored morale factor and for CCV purposes. Why? I don't know. Okay. Was this historical? You know, you have a bunch of, let's erase this thing. We have a bunch of 447s. Are those also assault engineers? Um, let's see. It says Finnish MMC are considered assault engineers. Normally, assault engineers have to be elite units. So that's another annoying factor. Okay, you know, you always have to put up with this kind of stuff with these scenarios. So anyway, just keep that in mind. If you're a purist, this is not a pure ASL scenario. All right, so this is about the city of Petrozavodsk in East Karelia. Uh, the way this reads is quite interesting. It says at the end and the conclusions here, um, the foolhardiness of the Red Army attacks during the Winter War and left the Finns unprepared for the stubbornness of the Soviet soldier in defense. Okay, no citation for this information. There never is on these scenarios. Uh, Although local commanders in the Finnish army were showing a reluctance to accept heavy casualties, okay, this allowed large Soviet forces to escape encirclement. Even so, this particular town we're fighting over did fall on October 1st after heavy fighting. Okay, so what's interesting here, though, is in the victory conditions, there are no, I didn't show you all of the victory requirements, but there's no restriction on casualty points for the Finns. So, guys, if the scenario says at the end that the Finns were reluctant to press forward and have too many casualties, why is it that they're allowed to sacrifice their entire OB here to take a few buildings in this town? Doesn't make sense. Okay, so those are my gripes with the scenario. Uh, you have to put, you know, some critical thinking into some of these scenarios to understand what's going on. If you just play this as a game and the scenarios are a good game here and you recognize that that's the case, then don't worry about it. Um, I normally don't dissect scenarios this much, but I thought I would since I'm making a video on this one. Okay, so there you go. All right, let's get into this analysis of the game. So we've set up, Doug has set up his Soviet troops thusly. You can see he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8 inch counters, which means that those guys are representing vehicles. Some are dummies, obviously, because it only starts with the 2 radio-equipped units. So I had to decide which one were likely to be the real ones. So honestly, I was concerned. I guessed one of them correctly. This one is in such a good position that I thought for sure this has to be real, and it is. Okay. I also, at this time, thought, okay, this one is probably real because it has good coverage down this way, protects this building here, this one. So I thought, maybe deploy both of them there. So what I decided to do then was bring both of my vehicles. And I have a flamethrowing vehicle, which is nice, and another 76 millimeter sort of land battleship tank, which comes on over here. They're radialist vehicles. So I brought them in up in this corner, as you can see right here. Okay, that's where they're coming in. Because the main mission, so let's talk about the missions here for my troops. These guys have a lot, they both have a lot to do. There's not a lot of troops to spare in this. My guys here, let's use yellow for my assaults. So these guys have to curl around this way and this way to take 3 of the buildings. Let me just expose this to you. There's the victory point buildings right there. Okay. So this other force over here, their main objective is to try to take the 2-point building, or at least, threaten it. If possible, I could divert some forces to help take this building. Okay, so get that in a pincer movement. The trouble is, or the rub is, that he's got some reinforcements coming in, and you can see them over here. And they come in on basically any road, not these roads. They don't come in on this side, but they come on any road hex that they want to within 2 hexes of that road. Okay. So my first concern is where they kind of come in. And having played Doug a few times, my guess was, well, he'll play conservatively for the beginning, not knowing how well I'll do or how much I'll commit to this side. My guess is he'd either bring his first group. Why did he do that? Huh. I didn't want the. Sometimes it. I think that's what I did. I picked the highlighter. Okay. So I thought they would come in here or here. That's on turn 3. Okay. That was my guess. So we'll see later what he actually does do. All right. His turn 5 reinforcements, though, and both of these have to be pre-designated. So which group comes in on turn 3 and where? Which group comes in on turn 5 and where? Okay. So let's step through the file now here a little bit and see what happens. So the snipers have been placed. All the concealment has been placed. Now, just one thing, there might be some mistakes that you'll notice in this because we're trying to play reasonably quickly, but Doug's pretty good on the rules, very meticulous on them, and so am I. I would say, I've declined in my abilities over the years, and he's actually gets the rules right more than I do. But he also tries to make things happen with these rules, and this brings up an interesting point, just as an aside I want to bring here, and this isn't pointed at me or Doug or anybody in particular, but one of the things that happens in ASL is because of the rules, and they're so particular and somewhat meticulous, almost to the point of being annoying. What happens is, in these games, the guys who win these games, who play are first of all, who play a lot of face to face, I think. Okay. Second of all, they're guys who know the rules, and they know the little tricks that you can do with the rules, allowing you little loopholes to do routing in certain ways in particular, or different types of attack formations and combinations and things like this. Um, the route rules are really annoying. As I've gone on with these route rules, and I know them pretty well, but you have to actually spend a lot of time learning these stupid route rules. Now, when I say that, it's only because route rules should be to, you've got broken units, they should be getting out of trouble. That's the main goal of the route rules. But there's so many criteria listed in so many poorly written ways and silly little gimmicky things. Like, for example, I don't know how many of you knew this. I'm sure that a lot of you will claim that you knew this, but you cannot low crawl in streams. Well, we found this out later on. As Doug was trying to do a maneuver, I would call it a trick maneuver, to low crawl from into a stream and out of the stream from a crest tank side. Uh, we'll talk about that later. I don't want to get too much into these rules, but getting back to my point earlier, look, if you see mistakes, that's fine. Go ahead. If you spend a lot of time commenting on the mistakes and nothing else about the video, and that's all you do, and we know the kind of guys who do that, and you know who you are, okay? I probably won't tolerate that, and I'll delete your post. If you're just coming in here to find people's mistakes, go do that someplace else, okay? You'll be welcome elsewhere for that. All right, that being said, let's get started on this. Okay, so I'm going to start stepping through this. It's turn one. You're going to see there's the first roll. I'm starting to move some stuff here. I'm looking at LOSs. All right, blah, blah, blah. Start some assaults up here. He fires and breaks me. Over here. I think Doug is quite aggressive with his shooting. This time he's just, we're playing a bit more strictly. Sometimes Doug and I will play that, oh, there's a real unit under that concealment, so I have to reveal my unit. But that's not how most people play. That's not how tournament games are played. Um, the way that you have to reveal that a unit is real is you can't just indicate that it's real. You have to show that it's a real unit. So sometimes Doug and I will play that you don't have to do that, but since we were going to record this, I was thinking of recording this. Got Doug's permission later. And he'll be commenting on this, by the way. It's not just me blathering on. It's going to be Doug, too. He has to show a real unit in order for me to strip concealments. So that guy's stripped concealment. This guy then's charging. He survived that, interestingly. Okay. So you're going to see some, not as aggressive as I often am, but pretty aggressive moves here. I'm trying to get into position to make him shoot. This guy did shoot. And broke him. These guys are advancing up. These are my 838s. Shouting at that guy. Okay. So these guys are going to cross over here. My goal here was twofold. I knew that this was probably a tank. This one right here. Okay. And I wanted to get an ATR on him from this angle. So that's what his job is. There's another ATR that I wanted to get here. Okay. And his job was to be able to shoot either this tank or this tank. That was the main goal. Because these ATRs are pretty good. They're 20L with rate of fire and a kill number of 6. On even more than that if they're closer than 6 hexes away. So a lot of my maneuvering in the beginning here was really to expose his units to fire, or make him expose himself, and then get into position to take out the tanks. Once the tanks are taken care of, that frees up a lot of movement for me. Okay. Now here's this stack here. Doug didn't do a very good job concealing it, so I know what's there, but I tried to play that it wasn't there, that I would have known. The problem with ASL in some ways on Vassal is that these kinds of mistakes are easy to make when you don't really intend to make them. You don't realize that your guys aren't concealed, even though there's a concealment marker on them. And you can't have this kind of effect just happening randomly. I mean, all you have to do is put your cursor over something, and then you see it. It's maybe totally inadvertent. You're doing something over here, and that's really a unit. So you have to be careful with Vassal. I'm not a big fan of the Vassal, VASL, tournament games being lumped in with real face-to-face games, because the real games are face-to-face. You have to play with the real game, the real counters, the real maps, and the real rules. There's altogether too many bells and whistles in this game that make it a lot easier to play. True, but it's not playing the same game. Many will argue with me about that, and I don't care. They're all wrong. All right, let's keep going. So, keep moving here. Okay, stuff's moving up. Try to take a. Oh, what happened there? Okay. All right, now that over here, I'm starting to move. Okay. Find his medium machine gun. Actually, wasn't expecting it there. It's a good place for medium down here. Look at that. One, two, all the way up. So he keeps rolling fives. You'll notice there's another five that he rolled. Okay, I passed that though. Hint anyway. So he didn't have a lot of luck with that guy. He didn't get rate of fire with it. I'm allowed to move up here. He might have had some LOSs, but I don't think he wanted to reveal anybody real as much as possible. So that's what's happening here. Moving up, slithering up, and then I find out. Did he reveal this? I'm not sure. So I bring in my yeah. I think he popped the concealment to try to make me lose concealment. So instead of me moving my tanks further down the road, I stop them back here to keep them safe. Okay. So that's it. Doing all sorts of stuff. Probably having discussions here, which is why you're seeing all these weird things happening. Oh, I think one of the problems that I had, I brought them on. Miscounted the movement points or something. So we cut each other some slack from time to time on stuff like this. Okay. He does not reveal a real unit here, so they stay concealed. So that made me think this guy is probably a dummy. Okay, so he has some dummies, but not a lot. All right, so now it's it moved on to defensive fire. Now he's doing some defensive fire shots. Comes the final fire there. That guy tries to do. He does break him this time. Final fire. And you'll I notice here. I'll show you this later. This is actually a deadly trap for the fins. If they go into this hex and break, they will have to. There's a guy here. They will have to surrender. So luckily I caught that. This is something that's really good at finding these little trappy little annoying sort of play. He's good at defense compared to me. I'm much better at attacking than defending. Right. Okay. So here's the advancing fire. I had some really bad luck at the beginning here. Just couldn't get anything to happen. Getting annoyed at the dice gods there slightly. Okay. Red phase. Okay. And blah 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 blah. We must have been talking again. This is usually what happens when. Oh, I know what we were talking about. We were talking. He was trying to insist that this guy who broke would have to route here because he can trace one, two, three movement points that direction. And I was really not happy about this. This is an impossible route path for the guy. So you got to at least trace it through possible route paths. So it's 2-4 or 2-4, making this a legal destination. All right. So after a lot of going back and forth on that, he finally agreed with me, I guess. Um, this does come into play later, though, when later on there is nobody there and I have to route, and then I do have to route this way. It's quite funny. All right. So, anyways, after that kerfluffle, and we have a lot of those, Doug and I, because we're both vehement about our rules knowledge, uh, to our own detriment, in continuing the game at a good pace. But anyway, so as you see, it lasted a long time. And we finally got it done. And so I'm advancing in. Here's my move to try to be able to take on this thing here. This ATR advanced to take on that thing. Also, the ATR can shoot at that. But I think at this point I know that this is actually a real one. I'm not sure. I think I do because I remember shooting at it when it's concealed. Okay, so anyway, you guys are moving up. I'm losing concealment. That's it. All right, so we're still getting through to. There's his. Now we're on his first turn. Okay, and he's doing some shots. I think he starts. We both started rolling badly on the shots now. So I had to stop my whining because his rolls were starting to suck as well. Okay. Um, Although there are some casualties by this point, aren't there? Yeah, I've taken some half squad casualties here. Let's see. Now he's moving. Yes, he tried to get out of there, and I was able to break him. The thing is about these squads, you can see 648s. It's pretty good. You got, even though we are playing with the incremental, you got a 6 flat shot on a guy moving in a wooden building. That can bust you up. Right. So he broke. He's continuing on. Those guys pull out. I missed with my shot. That guy missed with his shot. So he reversed out. And then I tried shooting, I think, a machine gun, and that also missed. And this is actually a truck, so it moves very slowly, actually, in reverse. That's as far as he could get, I think. Okay. So boom, 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 boom. He's retreating here. As you can see, he left that trap hex for me for the next turn. Okay. Some other shots going on. He's trying to reinforce his thing here. All right, if I see anything notable, I'll comment on it. I'm just following this as we go. This is standard stuff, defensive fire. This I wanted to mess up with because he had, I think he rallied a guy here or something. Anyway, I was worried that he's got a leader here. That makes this much harder to breach. There's that ATR shot. It missed. No, it was not a possible shot because I was too far. I thought I was 6 away, but it was 7 away. So it was a possible shock. I was really doing some dumb things with my. I was trying to figure out where to place smoke, and I think I finally figured out that I was totally wasting my time over there on that smoke placement. Okay. So now we're routing again, and he's made this really hard to get at. All right. So now it's turn 2. So you're going to see, I decided I need to really push forward. I've got to take these buildings. And I can't, I don't have any smoke, as I recall. That was one of the problems. So, anyway, we continue. So I'm trying to rally. I think I rallied a guy there. He rallied this guy. Yeah, I was really annoyed with that. He rallied that guy at broke. So I'm trying to prep fire. You can see nothing's working. I did break that guy finally. That was good. That was important. Over here, try to take another shot at that end. That tank missed it. As you can see now, I'm moving in here very aggressively on this flank. And we'll see how things work out. Shooting at me. That's my leader with the demo running at him. I think he pins that guy. eventually, but he has to shoot a lot to get it. He places the demo and then he shoots again. His final protective fire does not work. Okay. The other guy manages to pin him and then puts the demo back with him. There it is. Okay. So that freed this guy up, though, to make an end run around here. Go in. I think Doug is brave. He tries final protective fire, fails, everything breaks. So all of these guys are now sacrificed to the gods of ASL. So that was firing unusually aggressively, I would say, but um, I think he's playing very well here. I have no fault with any of the stuff that he was doing. As usual, he's a tough opponent. Okay, so kept moving up. As you can see, then I tried to run around here because I wanted to close combat with my higher CCV. Remember, I'm an assault engineer. Okay, I think he takes a pot shot, misses that. And this guy survives all of that fire, and so that really annoys Doug because he's got to change his turret cover arc. Okay, moving up, and then over here, aggressively heading towards the building. Those guys are moving up. Tank's moving up. That's my. I had to. This guy had stopped in heat state of motion, so he had to take a task check to keep moving. He passed it. So I'm coming up here to blast this guy with my flamethrower. Okay. Try to cross the road here. This looked extremely dangerous, but I needed to get across. As it turned out, he didn't really. If there's anything he could have done better, was covering this road, I think, rather than this road. This north-south road, or actually it's not north, south, east, west road, isn't as important for him to cover. It's a good one for me to cover because it keeps him from moving laterally. But as the attacker, I don't care about being channeled on either side of the road. Um, I think he would have been better off covering this road. Just my observation, especially based upon other results. So I keep crossing in. He keeps shooting at me, but all these guys pretty much baited where they wanted to go. Never really had any trouble with those guys crossing over. Right. So over here, finally, he takes another shot at the guy and misses. Um, this was really annoying. He threw a battle machine gun at me. He rolled another 5. He was rolling so many 5s, and I break. Why did I break? Because it's an 838. That's why it broke. My 838s. I have this superstitiously bad feeling about them. Okay. All right, which is the way to play. Okay, so anyway, continuing on. Looks like I'm shooting at stuff. Those guys have to surrender. Route phase. Now here, we're coming up on this guy's route in a minute. Okay, so my advancing fire broke this guy. So my advancing, so I actually his front line has been shattered over here. Now my flamethrowing tank does its thing. Because I didn't shoot the flamethrowing tank yet, I waited till the last possible thing to shoot it. And I've shot, and he shot first. Then he finally takes the flamethrower attack, and he blows up. So that worked out well. So at this point, the attack's going well for the finish. People. Okay. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to be sending this over to Doug for commentary shortly. as this ended the first group of play for us. So I want to call this an after action report. It's like an ongoing action report. All right. So here comes the route phase, advance phase. The guys are crossing the road in force. Oh yeah, so this guy did finally have to route here because it's closer. So he took interdiction here because he revealed this heavy machine gun. I think just for interdiction purposes, we had a discussion on whether that would actually reveal him for any other purpose. Um, I think we allowed him to reconceal it. But anyway, then of course I took a morale check here in interdiction and failed, and so now a 338 should be broken. So there's my 838s going down in flames. I go into CC here, and it's +1 -1, but it does give me wall advantage because as soon as he's occupied with a friendly unit, then this guy can't hold wall advantage anymore, and that gave me wall advantage with my ATR stack or squad. Okay, so we're playing cat and mouse over here, trying to get across over here. Close combat failed. His counterattack failed. And that's it. Okay. So that's the first turn and a half. It's going to be his turn 2 in the next file. I'm going to send this over to Doug, so he might be adding some commentary. All right. Everybody, thanks for watching. If you stayed through this whole video so far, fantastic. Thank you. Like and subscribe if you think this is useful for you. And appreciate it. Take care.